Wait. Oh no. Wait, this is the wrong... Did I not save last time? No! Did I not save? Oh no. I did not. Did I not save? I'll be back in a second. I did not save. This is the sucks. This is the sucks. I didn't save. I have to be careful. I don't want to accidentally skip something. There we go. Alright, here we go. Now this is the next chapter, Umineko no Nakukorni. This is where I needed to be. In the end, Canon-kun did not regain consciousness. Even though Dr. Nanjo and the rest did all they could do to heal him, there was very little that could be done on an island like this without medicine or proper facilities. However, Canon-kun was the only human ever to confront the culprit. I'm going to repeat that. However, Canon-kun was the only human ever to confront the culprit. If only he could give us some kind of clue. But by the time he was carried here, it was already too late.
申し訳ありません。あのような重傷を設備のないところではどうしようも。
いえ、無理もないことです。最善を尽くしてくださり、ありがとうございました。
Dr. Nanjo's shirt had been sprayed by a violent spurt of blood, so it was easy to imagine the devotion with which he had tried to save Canon-kun's life up until the very last second. Jessica was crouched in the corridor, crying in anguish. She had probably been taking care of Canon-kun until the moment of his death. George and Nikki tried to approach her with words of comfort, but when Jessica pushed them away, he stopped trying to interfere and left her alone.
私がカノンさんを一人で行かせなければ。
気に病むことはない。仮に一緒だったら熊沢も襲われていたかもしれん。それに愚かにも先走ったゆえの自業自得だ。
そんな言い方ってねえぜ。
Fortitude.
カノン君は犯人の姿を見つけて勇敢に立ち向かったんだ。熊沢さんも一緒だったら犯人は躊躇して逃げることを選んだかもしれない。
Emotion-filled words that I never thought I'd hear from the normally tactful Jessica tumbled out of her mouth. Kumasawa, looking truly sorry, could do nothing but hang her head.
ジェシカ、今は言葉をかけるべきじゃない。僕だって、そしてバトラ君もだろう。もう何が何だかわからなくて心が張り裂けそうだよ。
There were tears in George and Niki's eyes again. Seeing Jessica break down crying probably brought back the pain of losing his parents. I had already cried myself dry, so I didn't want to cry anymore. However, I felt myself the pain in their hearts.
大丈夫だよ、ジェシカお姉ちゃん。カノンにだってまたすぐ会えるよ。
よしてくれよ。 そういう慰めはいらねえぜ。
You really aren't, Maria.
ベアトリーチェは死者も失った愛すらも蘇らせる。
Do you know you're in a game or something?
だからきっとすぐに会えるよ。
Or you're being heavily brainwashed by a different individual. I'm going with the brainwash approach.
そしてきっとみんなで穏やかに過ごせるから。
カノン君を殺したのがマリアに昨日手紙を渡したっていうベアトリーチェなのか。そいつはどこにいるんだよ。どこに隠れてるんだよ。私が見つけて引き裂いてやる。言えよ。知ってるんだろ犯人の正体を。お前は何を知っていて何を隠してるんだ。話しやがれ。
お嬢様、おやめください。
Was she hitting Maria? Oh, she was.
ベアトリーチェはいる。
畜生、源氏さん話せよ。マリアが犯人を知ってる。しかもそいつは知ってて隠してるんだ。そして私たちの内情を伝えて殺しの手引きをしてるに違いないんだぜ。
I want to add, if that is the case, which could definitely be plausible, Maria has to be some sort of like a genius for a 9-year-old. Or heavily brainwashed. I'm going with heavily brainwashed. Like, not in the sense of mind control, no. She was brainwashed from a young age to, you know, think the way she does. Does it involve Rosa? Maybe.
ジェシカ、静かにしなさい。
Jessica rushed at Maria and grabbed hold of her. Genji tried to stop her, but Jessica could not be calm. The next thing I heard was the sound of Aunt Nasuhi slapping Jessica's face. After that, only Jessica's sorrowful sobbing voice resounded throughout the hall.
マリアちゃん、僕は君が断じて犯人ではないことを知っている。君はいつも僕たちと一緒にいたし、犯人なんかと通じている時間はなかった。
There are some moments where it definitely could seem like Maria could be the culprit, though.
だから聞かせてほしい。君に昨日手紙を渡したベアトリーチェとは誰なんだい？
Although those words seemed kind, they clearly showed that George still had some doubts about Maria. He hadn't tackled Maria. However, he felt exactly the same way Jessica did.
兄貴、同じことは俺もさっき聞いたぜ。返事は同じさ。
マリアちゃんの口から聞きたい。ベアトリーチェとは誰なんだい？
言ってもどうせ信じない。
それはどういう意味だい？ひょっとして僕らのよく知る人物が犯人で、君は何かの事情からそれをかばうために黙っているというのかい？君はあの手紙を誰にもらったんだい？
ベアトリーチェにもらったんだよ。何度だって言う。手紙はベアトリーチェにもらった。ジョージお兄ちゃんがベアトリーチェを信じないのは殴れる相手じゃないから。 ジョージお兄ちゃんはやるせない気持ちを暴力に変えて誰かにぶつけたいと思っている。だから殴れる相手が人間じゃなきゃ収まりがつかない。だからそんなジョージお兄ちゃんには真実を話しても受け入れられない。だから言っても無駄。信じない。でもマリアは何度も言うよ。真実だから言うよ。ベアトリーチェはね、いるの。黄金鏡の扉はもうすぐ開かれるよ。マリアはそこに行くの。ベアトリーチェが約束してくれたの。
God, I'm still, like, my mind's telling me Maria fell for the easiest trick in the fucking book to fall for.
その世界ではママも優しくてパパも一緒で優しいの。
She's, okay. Yeah, she got brainwashed into, you know, well, basically, okay. My theory about Maria right now is there's a lot of problems at her house. Probably surrounding around the fact that her mom is really into business and she has no present father. And she mentioned she was a TV kid. So she might be very, she must be having a lot of emotional issues, which shows through her ooh-oohs and her, you know, witch personality. I know I'm going a little bit into the psychology of a fictional character right now, but it actually helps me, you know, figure out a part of this mystery what's going on. For which, oh my god. For which, Maria is definitely a part of this mystery. Is she a part of the culprits? No, I have no clue about whether or not she's part of the culprits. But, at the very least, she's being emotionally manipulated and falling for very easy tricks to fall for. This is... man...
マリアは早くそこへ行きたいの。みんなはベアトリーチェのことを恐れている。そしてそれは無理もないことだけど。なら安心して。ベアトリーチェは言ってたよ。台風が去るまでに全てを終わらせるからって。
Did George hit her?
饒舌なマリアも嫌いじゃねえが、とりあえずはそのくらいにしとけ。
I'm not surprised Ballard hit her.
魔女はいるいる言ってたお前にとって、さぞや現状は愉快だろうが、とりあえずそいつはお前だけで噛み締めとけ。他人にまで押し付けるんじゃねえ。
こいつ前から気持ち悪いやつだとは思ってたけど、おかしいぜ。どっかおかしいぜ。バトラは思わねえのかよ。ケンジさんは、熊沢さんは、母さんはどうだよ。マリアは犯人の正体を知ってて隠してる。確かに直接手を下してるわけじゃないかもしれない。でも間違いなく犯人の一味だぜ。そうさ、スパイさ。私たちと一緒になんかいさせられないぜ。
マリアちゃん、不謹慎な話を慎むべき時もあることを知りなさい。これ以上混乱に油を注ぐような真似が過ぎれば
Sorry, Nasuhi. I'm gonna read your line and then slap myself. Maria-chan, you must learn that there are some times where indiscreet discussion must be avoided. If you continue to add any more oil to the fire. Even I will get very angry. And now for messing up your line, Nasuhi, it's time for the slap. I even missed! Nope. Can't be afraid of my own slap. This is my punishment for skipping a line. That wasn't on the rest, but that still hurt just the same. Aunt Nasuhi glared at Maria with frightening eyes. Maria was used to Auntie Rosa's loud style of scolding, but apparently she hadn't developed a resistance to this kind of silent telling off. She shrugged and kept her mouth shut. A desolate feeling filled the room. It felt as though things would just get more complicated if anyone spoke. How many people had already died? 6 in Dad's group. Also, both Auntie Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi, Kanon-kun, grandfather. There were a whole 18 people on this island. 10 of those had been killed. More than half of us had been killed. And at this stage, there was absolutely no guarantee that the remaining 8 were going to be alright.
とにかく今は仲違いをしている時ではありません。犯人が神出鬼没に屋敷内を出入りしていることが間違いなくなった今、私たちは明日まで身を守ることだけに専念しなくてはなりません。
夏日おばさんに極めて同感だぜ。犯人探しは今夜ゆっくりできるさ。今はどこで籠城するかを考えた方がいい。
As I said this, I pointed out the clock to everyone. It was already 8 at night. We had been receiving shocks over and over again since the early morning, and both our bodies and our minds were completely tired out. There was still a long time until tomorrow. We needed to find some place to barricade ourselves in. Somewhere we could rest our bodies and feel even the slightest bit safe.
私も同感ですな。私も含め、もうみんな体も心も限界まで打ちのめされています。今からそれを考えた方が賢明でしょうな。
そういうこった。敵はマスターキーに準ずるものを持っている公算が高い。
シャノンやカノン君、ゴーダさんはマスターキーを持ってましたか？
はい。勤務時間中だったなら身につけていたはずです。
現場をいじらない方がいいったんでそこまでは調べなかったのが、誰かの鍵が奪われている可能性は否定できねえな。
そもそも犯人はバラ庭園倉庫のシャッターを開けるために一度使用人室を訪れている可能性があります。そこでマスターキーをすでに入手していると考えて間違いないでしょう。
There were maid servants serving the Ushiromiya family. Because of that, there were several master keys. Furthermore, every time the shifts changed, the keys were passed between servants. She had to admit that the arrangement had been somewhat sloppy.
仮に殺された使用人の誰かのポケットから鍵束を拝借したとして、その鍵でも開けられない安全な場所はあるのか？
私たちはお仕事の都合上すべてのお部屋の鍵を預かっております。お屋敷もゲストハウスもすべてです。
つまり 私たちはどこへ立てこもって鍵をかけようと意味がないってわけだ。上等だぜ。鍵なんかいるもんか。来るなら来やがれってんだ。返り討ちにしてやるぜ。
敵は正面から来ないよ。最初の6人はともかく母さんたちやカノン君、そしておじい様の霊を見る限り敵は孤立した人間だけを狙ってる。一部屋に固まっている僕たちのところへ堂々と乗り込んでこられるほどの力はないんだよ。
そうだな、兄貴の言う通りだ。ひょっとするとおばさんのライフル銃が抑止効果として成立してるのかもしれないぜ。
なら良いのですが。
マリア、言いたいことがあるんだろうが、そいつは飲み込んでしばらく黙ってろ。
Maria probably wanted to say that witches weren't afraid of things like guns, or something like that. But if she were to say it loud, the atmosphere around here would start to get pretty edgy. I had noticed, and decided to put a stop to it.
よろしいでしょうか。一箇所だけ使用人の鍵束でも入れない場所が。
それはどこです？
はい、親方様の書斎です。
私は反対だぜ。じいさまの気持ち悪い部屋になんか入りたくない。
あの部屋に入れる鍵は何本あるんですか
？2本です。1本は常に私が、もう1本は親方様がお持ちでしたが、先ほどボイラー室の遺体からこれを。
Genji-san took a handkerchief out of his pocket and opened it, showing us the burnt and filthy key to the study. Then, he showed it alongside his own key, which he had once lent to Aunt Nasuhi.
本来なら警察のために鍵も残すべきだったのですが、親方様より書斎の留守は必ず守るようにと仰せつけられておりましたもので、私がお預かりさせていただいておりました。
なるほど。ということは金蔵さんの書斎は唯一の安全地帯というわけですな。
そういうことになりますね。あの怪しげな匂いの部屋に一晩も立てこもるなど考えたくもありませんが、あの部屋が一番安全であることを今は認めなければならないようです。
その安全な部屋に閉じこもってたじいさまを犯人は連れ出して殺してる。絶対安全とは言い切れねえけどな。
バトラ君の説のおじい様がうまくレシートをやり過ごして自分の意思で部屋を出たと考えるなら、籠城の価値はあるかもしれない。
へえ、楽観的すぎだぜ兄貴。
However, at the same time, I thought he brought up a pretty interesting point. After all, this gives us a chance to question the enemy, the witch herself, about how the sealed door had been opened. If we assume that the culprit used some technique to abduct grandfather from his study, they would have to show us the same trick again if they wanted to assault us in the study. It's an opportunity to force the culprit to demonstrate that trick right before our eyes. If they're a real witch, we would be forcing them to say, "Open sesame," and open the door by magic right in front of us. But such a thing is probably impossible. If you flip over the chessboard, you realize that the culprit is obviously just trying to act like they're a witch. If they really were a witch, all they have to do is appear in front of us and show off a spell colorful enough to silence all our doubts. Since they avoided doing that, everything must be the work of a fake witch who wants us to think otherwise. Therefore, a culprit who used a technique other than magic to defeat the locked room couldn't open the door before our eyes.
じいさんの部屋ってのは8人で押しかけても大丈夫なくらいの広さなんすか？
はい。ベッドにソファー、毛布類もありますので、贅沢を言わなければ十分に夜を越すことができます。流しにご不浄、冷蔵庫に酒棚もあります。
ひゅー、そいつはすげえぜ。しかしおかしなもんだな。自分の家の中にさらに自分の家を作ったってのか？島を丸ごと買って自分の夢を全て実現しきったじいさまの最後の家にしちゃ随分手狭なんだな。
そうですね。いつの頃からかお父様にとっては屋敷内ですら心を許せる場所ではなくなってしまったのでしょう。
そこに引きこもっていたのを私たちは嘲笑い、そして今度は私たちがそこに立てこもろうってわけだ。
Jessica spat the words out.
ジェシカちゃんは立てこもるより犯人を探しに行きたいという感じだね。
もちろんこっちから探しに行って見つけられるなんて思っちゃいないぜ。結局は待つしかない。ならどこで待ったって同じだろ。逃げも隠れもしない。客までテレビでも見ながらのんびり現れるのを待とうじゃねえかよ、ベアトリーチェ様をよ。
現れなければ現れないで十分です。犯人を暴くのは私たちである必要がないからです。
正論ですな。警察が来るまで危険を冒すべきではありません。
ありがとう南條先生。私はお父様の書斎に移るべきだと思います。確かにお父様が連れ出された可能性があり、絶対の安全が保証されているわけではない。しかしバトラ君の推理のお父様が何らかの方法で自ら書斎を出て外で襲われた可能性も否定できません。
That crazy theory had just been what I came up with to stop the argument. However, just as Auntie Eva had said, even though that trick would work, I can't begin to explain what motive could have made Grandfather do something so awkward to sneak out of his own study. Plus, that trick of hiding under the bed and waiting for the receipt to be removed before escaping couldn't have been used unless Grandfather had known that the receipt was wedged in the door. Auntie Eva had pointed out that last part, but it's clear how absurd the theory was. Then, does that mean that, as Auntie Eva claimed, the door was sealed and it was a locked room? Is it a doubtless fact that Aunt Nasuhi was the culprit? And that the room was a locked room? If Auntie were here now, she would probably make that claim openly and do me the favor of blowing my strange theory away. But anyway, I had to admit that a room with both a bed and a toilet that all 8 people could be shut up in, and with only 2 keys, both of which were gathered here, had to be the safest place in the mansion right now. At the very least, I figured this would be better than shutting ourselves up in the parlor again and saying nothing went wrong while we were in there before. No, wait. Were we safe only because we were shut up in the parlor? What if leaving that room and moving to an unexplored location is actually more dangerous? No good. No goddamn good at all. My flimsy head is about to break out in a fever. As I keep flipping over the chessboard, the real and the inverse keep switching with each other over and over, and I lose my ability to believe anything. When it seems like the culprit is one of the 18, I want to believe in Beatrice. And when I start believing in Beatrice, I start wanting to find the culprit amid the 18. That keeps spinning around forever, and in my head, my thoughts haven't taken one step from where they started. How far back in the past was it that Kirie-san taught me this chessboard way of thinking? That concept of examining the situation by flipping it over and thinking from the enemy side. I get the feeling that I was so interested in this way of thinking at the time that I let it guide the way I thought about everything. By the way, Kirie-san was Dad's coworker back then. I hadn't dreamed that the day would come when she would be added to our family. Mind. Didn't Kirie-san tell me something? I get the feeling she once said that, while this chessboard thinking was one way to look at things, it wasn't all powerful by any means. And, in fact, was actually bad to rely on too much.
チェス盤思考ってのはね、昔本で読んだゲーム理論というものを私なりに解釈したものよ。とても面白い学問だから、バトラ君も大学に入ったら挑戦してみるといいわよ。
ぜひやってみたいっす。それを勉強してチェス盤思考をもっと鍛えたら、どんな相手の手の内も読めるみたいで楽しいじゃないですか。
でもね、盲信しちゃダメよ。ゲーム理論は非常に奥深く複雑な学問なの。
Is there a Professor Patrick in the class? I should stop making myself laugh. God damn it. God damn it. I should stop myself from laughing.
チェス盤思考はその上辺だけを私なりに解釈した考え方に過ぎない。バトラ君が想像するほどに相手の手の内を読み切るには相当の勉強が必要よ。しかもチェス盤理論は応用の利く便利なものではあっても完璧ではない。便利ではあっても弱点が多い。
弱点？
ええ。チェス盤思考の基礎はゲーム理論。ゲーム理論は突き詰めると数学に行き着くの。 数学の弱点は何か知ってる？ノイズよ。
In math, when you write 1 plus 1 equals 2, that equation will always be 1 plus 1 equals 2 no matter how many billions of years pass. Nothing more, nothing less. That's because there's absolutely no noise mixed in. But, for example, unlike math, the Japanese language has noise mixed in. Kanji are a good example. Old kanji and new kanji are slightly different, which represents an introduction of noise created by change over the ages. Isn't history the same? There are dozens of policies that seem foolish in the modern era, but were meaningful at some point in the past. Because the rules of chess are fixed, when a pair of experts are discussing one particular position, it's possible that they could reach the same conclusion whether they're from 100 years in the past or 100 years in the future. However, if the rules of chess had gone through massive changes over time, it's possible that the discussion about that same position would have changed as well.
その通り。人の世の事象は本来ノイズだらけなのよ。人の感情だってそうでしょ？全く同じことが起こったからといって人は必ず決められた反応を示すとは限らない。それを数学の理論で当てはめ相手の行動を読もうとする時点ですでに理論には弱点と限界があることを知らなければならない。手っ取り早く言うとチェス盤思考はノイズや気まぐれ、そして誤解、認識ミスに非常に弱いの。
I am loving Kyrie. That's right. Kyrie-san definitely said that. In the first place, chess is a game where both sides play by the same rules and fight with the same objective, namely victory. This is why it is possible for both sides to predict the other's moves. It's possible to read an opponent because you can always suppose that they will advance with the best moves they can find. But what if the opponent is a fickle or a little tired and makes a move that can hardly be called the best? Or maybe, what if the game actually has special rules? Only the enemy knows them, and they can make use of something unknown to you. In fact, what if the opponent actually has some goal other than victory? Think from your enemy's perspective. That is the basis of chessboard thinking. Which means that if you misunderstand your enemy, any and all answers that you draw from that process will be complete rubbish and of no use at all. Many times, I thought that by using chessboard thinking, I had gotten a glimpse into the person behind these crimes. However, I don't know anything about the culprit. Am I just playing in a labyrinth of thought? If Kyrie-san were here at a time like this, she'd probably be able to notice something with her much sharper thinking ability. Jessica never warmed to the idea of moving into grandfather's study. But in the end, Aunt Nasuhi persisted, and we decided to move there. Everyone was already trapped by paranoia. Kumasawa-san had prepared dinner once already, but after the incident involving George and Niki's parents, the kitchen and the parlor had become temporarily devoid of people. Someone said that it might have been poisoned at that time. Because of that, we were unable to even touch the food that Kumasawa-san had taken the trouble to make for us. The manner in which the first 6 people had been killed was still unknown, but there was a possibility that it was poison. And indeed, by this method, even a single person would be able to carry out the murder of 6 fully grown adults. Furthermore, this idea made it seem like there was only a single culprit, who was also afraid of Aunt Nasuhi's rifle, and this was very good for our emotional stability. But the fatigue and hunger were even harsher than we had imagined. So, on Kumasawa-san's suggestion, we all went along together to the kitchen and gathered some canned food, which would be hard to poison, to take in with us. All of Kumasawa-san's efforts to reward us with at least a nice dinner on this savage day regrettably came to nothing. The food piled up on the serving cart looked just a little sad. To the study we go. We all started climbing up the stairs. Aunt Nasuhi led the group, warily staring into the darkness with both eyes and the barrel of the gun. When we arrived on the 3rd floor, just as Aunt Nasuhi had warned us beforehand, there was a mixture of a chemical smell and a sickly sweet aroma, a stench hanging in the air that felt like it was eating into our heads.
なるほど。こりゃ一晩もこもったら頭痛にでもなりそうな匂いだな。今更ながらじい様の書斎に反対したジェシカに賛成だぜ。
This exceptionally magnificent door felt like the source of the stench. So this was the door to the forbidden study, which had turned away all who visited it. While Genji-san was unlocking the door, Maria was staring at the door and the doorknob with great interest.
おー、すごいドア。
古くいかめしくて冗談の通じなさそうな、いかにもじい様の書斎にふさわしい扉だよな。
霊的な悪意を退ける力がとても強く込められている。多分ベアトリーチェはこの扉を開けられないね。
お？それどういうことだよ。
Maria pointed at the doorknob. A scorpion crest. No, a design like a magic circle arranged around a scorpion was inscribed there. This design. That's right. Isn't this just like those key holder charms that Maria gave Jessica and me yesterday?
火星の5の魔法陣は強力な魔除け。
The Witch of the Painting.
しかもこの魔法陣は相当丹念に作られていて、力がよく満ちている。魔のものであるベアトリーチェにとって、この魔法陣はとても厄介だろうね。
それは心強いじゃねえか。この部屋ならベアトリーチェの魔手から逃げられるってことだろ。うちの魔女様は実に頼もしいぜ。
ならベアトリーチェはどうやって中のおじい様を？
バトラが推理した通りだよ。ベアトリーチェは中に入れない。でも彼女には魔法があるし、使い魔だっている。それらを使っておじい様が自分から書斎を出てくるように仕向けることはできるかも。
ああ、漫画で読んだな。吸血鬼は十字架が怖くて近づけねえけど、使い魔たちはへっちゃらなんで使い魔に襲わせるみたいなシーンを読んだことがあるぜ。
バトラたちに昨日あげたサソリのキーホルダーのようなお守りもこの火星の5の魔法陣だよ。込められている力は微々たるものだけど、この島を出るまでの間を守ってくれるだけなら十分だった。 なくしちゃったそうだけどね。
サソリのキーホルダーのお守り。
昨日私が母さんに渡したお守りはマリアにもらったものだったんだよ。ドアノブにかけると魔除けになるとか言われて、私より母さんの方がいいかなってあの時は思って。
そうでしたか。ジェシカにしては変わったものを持っていると思っていました。
夏日おばさんがあれをドアノブに？
ええ。夕べそう聞き、寝る前に扉の内側のドアノブにかけました。
なら夏日おばさんはとても幸運だよ。そうだったなら夕べベアトリーチェは夏日おばさんに指一本触れられなかっただろうね。ベアトリーチェはさぞや悔しがったと思うよ。
This got me into a new theory. What Kyrie would call a game theory. I'm sorry. Okay, this just came into my head and I wanted to say it right now. If we're going from a magical standpoint, I am slightly considering magic just to get interesting theories out there, even though I don't fully think magic's going on here. I'm gonna say something that could be on the magic theory as to why Aunt Nasuhi survived. This just came to my head. So, maybe because... Okay, this is out there. This is gonna be out there, but... When you mention familiars and all that stuff, what would happen if one of the servants was a familiar? And what if that familiar happened to be Shannon? Let me go ahead and make this theory right now. Okay. So, all the constant times that some of the servants called themselves furniture, Genji, furniture, Cannon, furniture. Shannon can compare it to furniture, so she's also furniture. Lots of furniture means... This is from the magical standpoint. Like, not the psychological one I said in previous episodes, but this is from the magical viewpoint. Like, from the magical viewpoint, why does it furniture means? Oh man, they just... familiar. What happens if the servants are familiars for the second master of the island, the master of the night, Beatrice? So, when they were choosing the 6 people to be killed, Nasuhi was supposed to be one of them. But, due to the magic charm on the door, Beatrice couldn't come in. So that's why she had Shannon attempt to come in. But growing impatient and angry that she couldn't kill Nasuhi, in her anger, she killed Shannon. In her anger. That's a magical standpoint. I actually don't know Beatrice's character enough, but... Well, I don't even know if Beatrice even has a character. She's a painting. And Grandpa's mistress. Grandpa definitely had a mistress. He definitely had a mistress which looked like the woman in the portrait. But anyways, going away from the mistress theory, so yeah, the magic theory I just stated, where Shannon is a familiar and she tried to get into Aunt Nasuhi's room, but growing impatient of Shannon, Beatrice killed her out of impatience of her familiar. And she's like, well, I killed the 6 people. Time to put them in the shed. If I was going for the magic theory, that would make a lot of sense. Shannon was one of the familiars. Now, I'm not 100% sure if Kumasawa and Goda, if they're also a part of this, because the only servants I know of actually referring to themselves as furniture would be Genji, Cannon, and Shannon. Yeah, those are the only 3. So Kumasawa and Goda might not be involved with any of this because I think Goda was hired by Klaus, not Kinzo. So Goda probably has nothing to do with this. Kumasawa might also be a familiar furniture. I'm not 100% sure actually. I don't know. But Goda, I think he was hired by Cross, so he might not be within Beatrice's little gang. That doesn't seem to really like her because Canon was trying to go against her, but died while trying to go against her. Now that's all I can say about my magic theory right now. Of course, I myself think there's a more non-magic reason as to what's going on in this house, in this mansion. But the magic theory was fun to, consider. Like, it's fun considering the magic theory, but I don't think magic's going on here. Beatrice? Annoyed? Couldn't lay one finger? Nasui thought back on that eerie graffiti she had seen that morning. Like someone had been tearing at the outside of her door with blood-soaked hands, and gasped in surprise. Could it be that this witch who called herself Beatrice had tried to enter through the door to her very own room? Or that was Shannon trying to get in, but Beatrice killed her in the process. But the magic-repelling charm had been hanging from the inside. By the way, that's a theory. I don't actually know if that's true or not, but that's my theory if I'm going from a magical standpoint. So she couldn't break through the door. So she was annoyed. So she scratched at it?
よせよ、そういう話。魔女なんかいないぜ。いるのは犯人。それも私たちと同じ人間だ。それを確かめる必要があるってなら、八つ先にして血が赤いかも確認してやろうじゃねえか。
Well, Lance, if witch's blood is red, is also Jessica. Couldn't you consider that witch's blood could be red?
よくもカノン君を。
She was in love with Canon. She was in love with Canon. I'm calling it. Genji unlocked the door. The 8 entered Kinzo's study. I love the door opening sound. Grandfather's study. I'd heard rumors about it beforehand, so it didn't surprise me all that much. He had done nothing more than fortify it thoroughly with his occult hobbies. If Grandfather's hobby had been chasing after pop idols, these walls might have been buried beneath idol posters. Even if I didn't understand it, I did realize that this room was an amalgamation of all the things he enjoyed. Even so, I couldn't help but remain dumbfounded by the smell of his creepy medicine and the sweet stench that seemed to melt my head. Minute darkness. When the door closed, it automatically made a clunk. I see. So, this is the auto lock that's activated whenever the door is closed. And there were only 2 keys which could open this door from the outside, both of which were in this room. In other words, this room had become a locked room. The shutter, the receipt, the chain, and now, the auto lock. This 4th door had been locked in the most magnificent fashion yet, constructing a locked room in a perfect form that none could argue with. Just to make absolutely sure that the room was secure, we checked all over for ways in and or out. The windows were tightly locked. That should have been enough, but just in case, we tried knocking all over the walls. After all, there have been whispers that there might be a hidden door in this room, but we couldn't find anything suspicious. Grandfather's study was very large. Even though we called it a study, it wasn't really a single room. It could be divided up into 4 basic sections: a study section, a bedroom section, a toilet-bathroom section, and a section for cooking that had a sink. I see. This study does have enough in it to live in. Now I could understand how Grandfather could live his whole life in this room without ever leaving. It seemed that Grandfather wasn't in the habit of watching TV. There was no television in this room, nor even a radio. Until tomorrow morning, there would be nothing for us to do but pass the time listening to the sound of the rain. Dr. Nanjo gazed at the chessboard that sat on the table in front of the sofa and muttered. It was apparently the partly finished chess match he'd been playing with Grandfather until yesterday. The black had the white pretty well cornered, and it looked like checkmate would be reached within a few moves. The end of the end game. Even though checkmate had almost been reached, the endgame had been rushed, and in the end, was never completed.
Kinzo さん、やはりこの勝負は決着がつきませんでしたな。
Well, you won by surviving.
南條先生。
わしは長く金蔵さんの友人だったが、金蔵さんのことを知っているのは半分だけでしかなかった。金蔵さんにはいつも聡明な金蔵さんと何かの恐怖にとらわれた金蔵さんの2人が同居していたように思う。わしは金蔵さんのことを何も理解してはおらんかった。
特にベアトリーチェ様のことになると人が変わったようでしたっけね。
In the direction of Kumasawa-san's upward gaze, a portrait of Beatrice could be seen. It wasn't massive like the one hanging in the entrance hall, but small, made for this room. Grandfather probably spent every day in this room, and so much of his time, talking to the witch in that portrait. Who was Beatrice to Grandfather in the first place? By now, you couldn't just explain her away by saying she was a story made by the parents to finding children away from wandering into the forest. While eating the canned food we had brought from the kitchen, we talked together about who Beatrice was. And before we hear what they have to say, I need to pee. I'll be back in a second. Whether the culprit was Beatrice herself, or someone pretending to be her. Whether they were a witch or a human, the lady in this portrait was strongly related to the basis and background of these crimes. You couldn't talk about them without talking about her.
そうだ。母さん、エヴァおばさんたちの部屋で犯人の手紙を拾ったんでしょ？
ええ。まだ開けていませんでしたね。開けてみましょう。
Aunt Nasuhi took out that Western-style envelope. Genji-san pulled a letter opener out of a drawer in the study desk and handed it to her. While watching her open it, George and Nikki grimaced slightly. After all, it was a letter left at the site where his parents had been murdered. There was a good chance that its contents would say something unbearable to Aunt Nikki. It seemed that Aunt Nasuhi also realized that. So she glanced over the contents first, without reading it aloud. We were a little frightened that she might grimace after reading something shocking, but she just frowned unhappily.
内容は何だ？
不愉快な一文があります。私たちを挑発するつもりなのでしょう。
And Nasuhi, after deciding that the contents could be shown to the children, set it openly on the table. Everyone stared at it at the same time.
我が名をたたえよ。なんだよこれ。うっせえぜ。
Are they gonna read the letter right now, or am I gonna have to go to the tips and see it? Oh. That's... oh, this is gonna be my easiest tip to remember. Praise my name. Yeah, that's gonna be... okay, that's my favorite tip now. That's my favorite tip. Praise my name. I think I can memorize that one.
ベアトリーチェの勝ち名乗りみたいなものだろうね。くそ。
大方また怪しげな魔法陣でも出てくるのを期待してたんだろう。
魔法陣ではなかったけどね。想像は裏切られなかったよ。
どういう意味でしょう？自分の存在を誇示したいのでしょうか？
Or could be referring to the third Twilight.
そう考えるのが妥当でしょう。この手紙で初めて私たちは昨夜の手紙の主が犯人であると理解できる。ここに書かれている内容よりも昨夜と同じ封筒でというところに意味があるものと思います。
封筒も風浪も間違いなく親方様が使われていたものです。
おお、もう私には何が何だか分かりませんよ。こんなことは後宮のお家にお仕えして以来初めてのことです。
昨日の手紙の言う通りならベアトリーチェは自称じい様の最古の腹心だ。じい様も常々そう口にしてたんですよね。
I directed the question to Genji-san and Kumasawa-san, who nodded together.
ってことはじい様の次に詳しいのは源氏さんと熊沢さんってことになる。話してくれないっすか？
私は長いことわざと耳にしなかった話です。ですがこの期に及んではそうも言っていられません。源氏、知っている限りを話しなさい。
Genji-san didn't answer. Did he remain silent despite his knowledge? Or did he know nothing at all? Still, I had a good guess. The ghost story of the witch Beatrice had long been defied by among the servants. Yeah, I'm gonna read that. The ghost story of the witch Beatrice had long been defied among the servants. He had probably been very close to grandfather too, and his occult hobbies. So there was a good chance that he'd been indoctrinated with even weirder things, and had increasingly come to defy the witch. As grandfather's most trusted servant, who had sworn loyalty to him. He might be the most influenced by the witch illustration that grandfather had created. So, there was only one reason for Genji-san to remain silent. He could say it, but it would definitely cause a backlash. So it was better if he kept his mouth shut. And it wasn't like we would believe him anyway. Something along those lines. Only a short while ago, Maria had been more than willing to speak bluntly and unrestrainedly. And that had earned her a scuffle with Jessica. It was natural for Genji-san to keep his silence. Thunberg Lily. And there we go. His mistress. That could be possible. For ordinary poor people, polygamy isn't only viewed negatively from a moral perspective. It is also an unmaintainable financial situation. But that isn't the case for the very rich. It's possible for them to have another lover in addition to their real life. We can't deny the possibility that grandfather had another woman in his life besides grandmother.
かもな。ばあ様は生きてた頃、よく疑ってたらしいぜ。浮気相手がいるってな。私はてっきりそれはじい様の想像の中の魔女のことを指してるんだとばかり思ってたんだが。
それなんとも面白い話になってきたぜ。源氏さんは俺に言ったよな。ベアトリーチェはこの屋敷ができる以前からじい様に仕えてたって。
お屋敷が竣工したのは昭和27年と聞いています。
ってことはベアトリーチェという人は30年以上も昔からおじい様と連れ添っていたということになるね。
その30年前の愛人、もしくはその縁者や隠し子が何かの恨みがあって何らかの復讐を企んだか。なるほど。洋館ミステリーっぽいありがちなストーリーになってきたじゃねえか。
Just like Grandpa's favorites kind of mysteries, I bet. Not for sure, I'm not for sure. I'm putting things into Kinzo's head, but that might have been his favorite genre of mystery, Western Mansion. Because he made his own Western Mansion mystery from my theory that Kinzo's the culprit. It's an obvious culprit theory because, come on, Kinzo's the most suspicious character, but it still makes for an interesting story either way.
汚らわしい話ですが、一番納得できる筋書きです。どうですか、源氏。
おそらく親方様に恋愛の感情は終わりになられたでしょう。亡くなられた奥様より愛しておられたに違いありません。
Well, it's no longer a joke that he had a mistress.
ベアトリーチェってのは何者なんだよ。そして今はどうしてるんだ。
お屋敷ができるより前にお亡くなりになったと聞いています。
Oh shit.
すでに死んでいる？
はい。親方様は大層深く悲しまれ、ベアトリーチェ様を蘇らせる方法として黒魔術に傾倒なさっていったのです。親方様はベアトリーチェ様を心の底から愛しておられたのです。 このような狂気に駆り立てるほどに。
As Genji-san said this, he spread his arms, as though asking us to look at this room, filled with the signs of grandfather's madness. World End. We were all at a loss for words. Before this, his black magic hobby was nothing other than creepy, and we had found it impossible to understand what drove him to devote himself to it. Nobody had tried to understand Kinzo, dismissing him as an eccentric who had restored the Ushiromiya family amidst his madness. All that had been on grandfather's mind was the loss of the woman he loved, and the sorrow of being unable to give up on her. Just a few moments ago, this room had seemed creepy, but in that instant, everything about it started making sense. The creepy books, the magic circles, the medicine, all of it. All just because he wanted to revive, once more, the visage of a single woman who had left this world 30 long years ago.
一度だけ深く酔われた親方様にベアトリーチェ様のお話を聞かされたことがあります。
This kind of, both breaks and makes theories in my head. This revelation.
詳しいことは忘れてしまいましたが、それはもう女の私が聞いて羨むような深い深い愛情でございました。
Also, I'm loving the Lee motive that's going on here.
金蔵さんは後宮家の当主を継いだ時、当時まだ生き残っていた後宮家の長老たちの意向で亡くなった奥さんとの結婚を決められたのです。
つまり後宮家にとって得になる女性との結婚を強制された。
さようです。金蔵さんはお家復興のためだけに当主に据えられ、全ての重責を背負わされたのです。そんな金蔵さんがどこでどういう経緯でベアトリーチェと知り合ったのかは分かりかねます。
それ以上語るのは無粋だな。
That was when grandfather truly fell in love for the first time. How deep that affection must have been. It was easy to tell just by looking around us. This room was covered with piles upon piles of things having to do with black magic. And grandfather had spent day after long day shut in here, immersed in his research, and isolated from the outside world, never taking a single day off. You couldn't help but realize how deep grandfather's love for Beatrice was.
私誤解してたよ、源氏さん。
何をでしょうか。
私、使用人の人たちが魔女を問診するのはじい様の気持ち悪い黒魔術趣味に感化されてるからじゃないかってずっと思ってきた。違ったんだな。
Perhaps they had been acting as though at least Beatrice's soul had been restored. and existed inside this mansion in order to soothe grandfather's heart. With closed eyes and an expression as though he was remembering something from the distant past, Genji maintained his silence. He probably felt that to confess that I'm gonna repeat that. He probably felt that to confess that would be to betray his one only master in the most serious way, even though that person was already dead. Beatrice has revived as a witch, and she is in this mansion even now. That was his mantra, what he had believed, what he had made others believe. And Genji would take that with him to his grave. This might have been the last service he would offer his master. The legend of the witch, the mysterious tale of Rokenjima that was still whispered amongst the servants. His true nature was a sad lie. No, an act of kindness towards grandfather, who had lost the person he loved above all else.
私はお父様の前で魔女を否定する話を何度か口にした覚えがあります。今ならそれがどれだけお父様を傷つけていたかわかります。
今の僕にならわかるよ。シャノンを蘇らせる方法が黒魔術だというなら、僕は今すぐにもこの部屋の次の主となって研究を始めるよ。
Well, Rokenjima's now yours, George. You're the head. Technically, you're the head now. When you think about it, George is the head now. Well, is he the head or is Jessica the head? Okay, someone down in the comments below, explain who would be the head after Kinzo, Klaus, and Ava is dead, along with Rudolph and Rosa. Would it be actually Jessica or George? It depends.
兄貴。
Another strand of tears dripped from George's eyes. Maybe it was infectious. Tears rose to Jessica's eyes too, and she sniffled.
ベアトリーチェは言っていたよ。もうじき蘇ることができる。会うことができるって。
Very soon, the door to the Golden Land will be opened. In that promised land that glitters gold, she'll resurrect all the dead people's souls and revive the love they possessed as well. And I will sleep in a world of peacefulness forevermore.
そう言ったのか。マリアに手紙を渡したベアトリーチェは。
信じないよね。
ここにじい様がいたならきっと喜んだろうな。もうじきベアトリーチェが蘇ることにさぞや踊り上がって喜んだろうな。なら俺は信じたぜ。じい様が半生をかけて研究したことで蘇り、愛した女の魂が蘇ったと信じて寿命を全うできるって言うんなら俺も信じたぜ。
バトラー。
一人の女性をずっと愛し続けた気持ちが周りにも伝わり真実となる。それを気遣いと呼べばそれまでだろうけれど。
You know, I'm gonna be the one to say this. I'm gonna be the one to say this out loud right now. Was it a one-sided love? Or did both of them like each other? Because this could go two different directions. This could be like a really, really deep love situation, or this could be a really, really deep stalker situation.
今の僕はあえてそれを魔法と呼んであげたいね。
気遣いじゃないよ。本当に魔法だよ。魔女だよ。やっぱり誰にもベアトリーチェの姿は見えないんだね。
Some time passed as we listened to the sound of the rain. We considered what kind of love and madness must have possessed the owner of this room as he spent half his life here.
"女の私から言えば、お父様の純愛の気持ちも少しは理解したいところですが、それではお母様の立つ瀬がありません。
同感だぜ。浮気は浮気。綺麗事にされちゃかなわねえよな。
それもそうだな。ばあ様が気の毒になっちまうぜ。
それでベアトリーチェとおじい様の間に子供がいたなんて話はある？
The key word, Beatrice, has been hidden in every corner of this case. So it's natural to suspect any relative of Beatrice.
いえ、そのような話は聞いたことがありません。
仮にいたとしたら最愛の人の忘れがたみとしてきっと全ての愛情を注ぎ込んだだろうね。それがなく黒魔術に没頭していったなら子供はいなかったと考えるべきなのかな。
そういえばこんな噂を聞いたことがあるぜ。
Beckoning.
知ってるだろ。じい様が福音の家っていう福祉施設に莫大な援助をしてるって話。
よしなさい。それはお父様を冒涜する中傷に過ぎません。
教えてくれよ、夏日おばさん。隠し事はなしなのはおばさんもだと思うっすよ。
くだらない話です。
As soon as Jessica brought up that, I'm like, there's a chill running up my spine. Yeah, there's already a chill up my spine.
お父様はその施設に莫大な援助をし、社会勉強の一環として当家の使用人雇用枠を開放していました。それをお父様に汚らわしい趣味があると吹聴する愚か者がいたというだけの話です。
一時期それが黒魔術の生贄にするためだみたいな噂になってさ。実際いつもこの部屋で怪しげな実験や儀式を繰り返してたわけで、私も半分は信じてたところがあったぜ。
その福音の家出身の使用人ってのは？
何人かいますが、親族会議中のシフトではシャノンとカノンの2人でした。
To resurrect Beatrice, he had summoned servants from a welfare institute as sacrifices?
確かにじい様が使用人として選ぶのはいつもシャノンやカノン君くらいの若い子ばかり。私だってじい様には妙な趣味があるに違いないって信じてたぜ。
ジェシカ、言葉を慎みなさい。
When Aunt Nasuhi scolded her, the atmosphere instantly went sour and everyone fell quiet. However, something was tugging at the back of my head. Sacrifices. Sacrifices brought over from the gospel house. What is it? Freaky words like sacrifices don't pop up often. Yet, I've seen or heard that word somewhere recently. Some part of my memory is tugging at me. Come on, Beatrice. What do you know? I had arrived in front of the portrait of Beatrice. It wasn't as vast as the one in the entrance hall. But that portrait, which he must have had drawn by... It wasn't as vast as the one in the entrance hall. But that portrait, which he must have had drawn by some famous painter, was still just as intimidating in the smaller size. Below it, just like the entrance hall, was the epitaph set. I'm gonna repeat that, I'm sorry. I'm reading too slow. Below it, just like in the entrance hall, was the epitaph set to point out the place where the gold was hidden. Play.
生贄だ。
なんだよパトラ。急に気持ち悪いこと言うなよ。
生贄を6人。
Both of my eyes opened as wide as plates. Right there. Everything had been predicted since the very beginning. Everyone crowded around. And the same expression of terror filled every face. Yes. It was written in the epitaph. On the first Twilight, sacrifice the 6 chosen by the key.
間違いない。最初に死んだのは6人だ。そしてシャッターに書かれた魔法陣じゃねえ、ヘブライ語でも生贄を捧げると書いてあった。
おお、マリアは最初からそう言ってる。
That's right. Maria had said it at the very beginning. Right after we found the 6 bodies, when Maria was in the parlor watching TV, she had said it. Woo! Killer's not human. Just the sacrifices chosen by the key.
これは黄金の隠し場所なんかじゃねえ。黒魔術か何かの復活の儀式の手順なんだ。確かこの碑文には大勢の死が必要になるはず。
確かにざっと読むだけでも 6+2+5 で13人は死ななくちゃならないことになってるぜ。
That's a lot.
普段はこの島には何人いるんですか？
使用人のシフトにもよるでしょうが、お父様、夫に、私にジェシカ、そして使用人が 2,3 人。昨日今日は5人いてもらってますが、普段はそこまでいません。
ってことはだ、この儀式を実行しようとしたら普段じゃ生贄が足らないってわけだ。いや違うぜ。じいさんは福音の家から不気味な儀式の生贄にするために使用人を取ったという噂。
つまりなんだよ。生贄の人数を増やすために使用人を増やし、さらに人数が集まる年に一度の親族会議を、この儀式を執り行える年にたった一度唯一のタイミングだったってことじゃねえか。
When Jessica screamed this, Maria broke out in that creepy laugh, looking truly pleased.
人は運気を試すためにある種の確率に願掛けをすることがない？
Like throwing a sandal and saying that if it lands right side up, tomorrow will be sunny. We're saying that tomorrow will be a good day if a coin lands on heads. There are many little superstitions like that. If you're fed up at how nothing is going right for you, and you happen to roll some dice and get 3 6s, it would probably make you want to believe that it's a sign of some miracle. Rikishi, you sly fox. When flipping a sandal, you have it worth a 50% chance. Even if you get it right side up, it's not worth much. But if you carelessly roll 3 dice and they all come up 6, you might think that's a small miracle.
魔術にもそういう考えはあるんだよ。限りなくありえない出目を期待してひたすらに祈祷を続ける。そうして蓄えられた祈祷の念は奇跡の出目が現れた時魔力を持って具現化される。おじいさまがしようとした魔術は多分そういうもの。鍵が無作為に選ぶ生贄の抽選。それに万が一自分が当たることがないようにこの島に最も人が多くなる日を選んで儀式を実行した。
バカバカしい。これらが全て怪しげな魔法の儀式の過程で起こった事件だと言い出すのですか。
Nasui yelled. She couldn't stop thinking fiercely about how she might have been protected just because of the scorpion charm. If I hadn't received that charm from Jessica and hung it from my doorknob, would I have been killed? Been one of those 6? And the strangest part is, even though I hung the charm from the inside of my door, they couldn't get through the door. The killer had noticed the charm from outside the door and had given up trying to open the door. A human couldn't have perceived that. The charm meant to stop someone that was not human, and had done just that. Impossible! Impossible! Impossible!
だが夏日さん、確かに碑文の内容はその後なぞっとる。
第二の晩に残されし者は寄り添う二人を引き裂け。これはエヴァ様たちのことを指しているのでしょうか。
悔しいけどそうだと判断せざるを得ない。そして母さんたちを殺した犯人は続く第3の晩の言葉を手紙に書きその場に残したんだからね。
そうだな。第2の晩を実行し第3の晩をその場に残した。
So that's some... Okay, that's a way to interpret it, I guess.
第3の晩はまさにさっき夏代おばさんが読んだ通りだぜ。
On the third twilight, those who remain shall praise my noble name. Ah! Now I read it. It just keeps going on, doesn't it? On the fourth twilight, gouge the head and kill. Gouge the head and kill. George and Nikki's parents were killed with the demon's ice picks gouged into their heads. But if that counted as the second twilight, someone else must be gouged in the head.
じいさまだ。焼却炉の中で焼かれてたからそっちに目がいっちまって気づかなかったが、じいさまも眉間にいや頭をえぐられてた。
じいさまが第4の晩の犠牲者。じゃあカノン君は
第5の晩に胸をえぐりて殺せ。カノン君については犯人との突発的な遭遇による犯行だと思ってたけど違う。誰か一人をおびき出し 胸を貫くことを初めから狙っていたんだ。
もし犯人がこれをなぞっているとしたなら、まだ3人が死ななければならないというのですか。
On the 6th Twilight, gouge the stomach and kill. On the 7th Twilight, gouge the knee and kill. On the 8th Twilight, gouge the leg and kill.
確かにそう読み取れますけど。
いや、そいつはどうかな。あと3人が死ねば第9の番になる。見てみろよ。
On the 9th Twilight, the witch revives, and none shall be left alive.
私たちはベアトリーチェにみんな殺される。
わけがわかんねえ。結局何人いようが最後には全員死ぬってことじゃねえか。じいさまは何が持ってきたったんだ。この儀式じゃじいさま自身何をどうしたって生き残れねえじゃないか。
誰も生き残れなくていいんだよ。第10の番には黄金鏡にたどり着く。
On the 10th Twilight, the journey ends, and you shall reach the home of the gold. The witch shall praise the wise, and the style for treasures.
おじいさまは死を恐れてなんかいなかったんだよ。ほら、4つの宝の2番と3番を見てごらんよ。
一つは全ての死者の魂をよみがえらせ、一つは失った愛すらもよみがえらせる。つまりおじいさまは自分がこの儀式の途中で死んでしまってもやがては復活できると信じてた。
バカバカしいぜ、妄言だぜ。死んだらそれまでだろ。死者は生き返らない。人類が何千年もかけて追い求め、結局は未だに成し遂げられない奇跡だぜ。つまりこういうことだろ。死後の世界で再会できて蘇ることができるとか、そういう類だろ。
ジェシカの言い分通りだとするなら、こいつはつまり老い先短いじいさまが恋に狂っての自殺まがい、いや壮大な無理心中ってことなのか。
ケンジ、その可能性を考えられるのですか。
わかりません。親方様は時に1000年の未来を見越されるほどの聡明なお方です。しかし凡庸な私にはそれが狂気としか映らないこともあります。
それってイエスって意味だよな。熊沢さんはどうなんだよ。
私は何も知りません。知りませんとも。知っていたなら今日この島にいると思いますか。仮病でも何でも使ってお休みしていますよ。
おじい様の長年の友人である南條先生のご意見は。
源氏さんに同じです。金蔵さんは凡人をはるかに超越した方だった。そこにある種の人間離れした力すらも感じることはありました。私にも金蔵さんが何を考えてこの碑文を残されたのかわからない。
一つだけ言えるのは、仮にこの筋書きを作ったのがお父様であっても、実行しているのは別の人間だということです。
確かに少なくともじい様とカノン君を襲った犯人は他にいる。しかもそいつはこの碑文通りまだ事件を続けようとしている。
僕たちが深く考えなかった最初の手紙、あれにはなんて書いてあっただろ
う。We thought back to the recitation of the letter last night. Beatrice had proclaimed something inside the letter. She had proclaimed that, in accordance with her contract with Kinzo, she would collect everything of the Ushiromiya family's interest. But then, she had also revealed a special clause. If someone discovered the location of the gold grandfather had hidden, that right would be lost. At the time that the letter had been read, grandfather was still alive. But at that time, it had already been sealed with wax by the head's ring, which meant that grandfather had handed the ring over to Beatrice while he was still alive. If you think about that straightforwardly, we should probably take that to mean that Beatrice is carrying out that strange contract, and grandfather is securing her that right. Simply put, it was the same as saying grandfather... Simply put, it was the same as saying that grandfather knew of and approved of the contents of that letter. In other words, it's as though it was a joint message from Beatrice and grandfather, telling us that Beatrice will start collecting interest if we don't solve the riddle. In short, grandfather and Beatrice were telling us to solve the epitaph's riddle. And if we couldn't, they were saying they would kill us all, following the procedure in the epitaph. What meaning is there to that? What do they want? I don't have a clue what it means.
ほら、ベアトリーチェからまた手紙だよ。
なんだって？
Maria was pointing at the top of the table, where the canned food that everyone had been eating just now still lay. A Western-style envelope was sitting there. So what? No way. And Nasuhi let out a hysterical cry, looking between her own hand and the table, because the envelope that she had just opened was still grasping her hand. And despite that, there's an envelope on the table?
なんだよ。どういうことだよ、マリア。その封筒はどこから出てきたんだ。
今見たら置いてあった。
私は何も知りませんよ。何も。
冗談じゃねえ。ここには俺たち8人しかいねえんだぞ。9人目がこっそり忍び込んでいたなんてこともあるわけがねえ。俺たちがちょいと肖像画の前に集まっていたわずかの隙しかないんだぞ。
System Zero. Whoa.
壁へ下がりなさい。
Oh. And Nasuhi was pointing the rifle at Genji and the others, bellowing at them. Genji-san was overpowered, his face looking like he didn't have a clue what was going on. Of course, I felt the same, but a few moments late, I reached the same conclusion Aunt Nasuhi had, until just a few seconds ago, There was no letter like this on the table! And nobody had entered this room! That means someone among us had placed it there during the few seconds when everyone was looking away, preoccupied with the portrait!
バトラ君、この封筒を開けて中身を読んで。
I picked up the envelope. It was sealed with wax. Even without disturbing its contents, I realized that this was an unopened envelope. An unknown envelope. Without relying on a letter opener, I violently tore it open and pulled out the letter inside. The contents were as follows.
金蔵様の碑文の謎をお楽しみいただいているでしょうか。すでにご存知と思いますが、皆様方には時間が多くは残されてはおりません。どうか嵐が過ぎ去れば逃げ出すことができるという甘えをお捨てくださいませ。
I know this voice.
このゲームには私と皆様方のどちらが勝つかの結果しかない。時間切れは私の勝ちとなる。引き分けはありません。そこをどうか誤解なきようお願い申し上げます。
って内容だぜ。
この手紙を誰が置いたかは明白ではありません。ですが疑わしき人物を絞ることはできました。あなたたちです。
奥様、それはあんまりにございます。
私は肖像画の前に行く直前、ここに缶詰を置きました。その時このような怪しげな手紙は決して置かれていなかったことを確認しています。そしてその時すでにジェシカとジョージ君、バトラ君は肖像画の前に行った。そして彼らはこの手紙が現れるまで肖像画の前を離れていない。つまりあなたたち4人の中にその手紙を置いた人物がいる。ベアトリーチェがいる。
おお、ベアトリーチェはマリアたちじゃない。ベアトリーチェはいるもん。
お黙りなさい。あなたたちの中の一人が疑わしいのか全員が疑わしいのか分かりません。しかし確実にあなたたちの中に犯人が混じっている。
そうだぜ。19人目なんかいるわけがない。魔女なんかいるわけがないんだ。カノン君を殺したのだって。そうさ、熊沢さんなら説明できるよ。熊沢さんは本当はカノン君と一緒にボイラー室に入り殺したんだ。そして後から来たらもう倒れていたと嘘をついた。
誤解です、お嬢様。私がなぜそのようなことを。
母さんたちをどうやってあの密室で殺したのかは見当もつかない。でも母さんたちが殺された時、使用人の人たち以外の全員にはアリバイがあった。なかったのは使用人の人たちだけ。でも本当に疑ってもいいんだろうか。
確かにそれを言い出したら全ての件でアリバイはないが。
Should we really be so quick to make that judgment? But this time, in this room, in this place, in this moment, in this minimally small bit of time and space, it's obvious. Only one of the four of them could have set the letter there in our blind spot. We can't tell who put it there, but it's obvious that one of the four did it.
夏井さん、どうか落ち着きなさい。今日一日いろいろなことがあった。 心が参っているのはよくわかります。
南條先生をお疑い申し上げるのは非常に心苦しいです。ですがお父様の主治医として、唯一無二の親友として、長くお父様と共にあられた。ビアトリーチェのことも知っているかもしれない。何かの古いしがらみを知っていて隠しているのではありませんか？
そんなはずはない。落ち着きなさい。
It was pitiful to watch Dr. Nanjo frantically pleading his innocence. It was probably a normal reaction that anyone would give if they were suspected. Kumasawa was the same. Since Jessica had started suspecting her in the murder of Cannon, she was now totally flustered. That was why Genji's still-come appearance looked so bold. Aunt Nasuhi pointed the barrel of the gun.
源氏、あなたはお父様の一番の部下です。ベアトリーチェとはあなたがお父様に見せた幻想で、あなたこそがその実行者だったのではないのですか？
そうお疑いいただけるのは、奥様が私を親方様の一番のしもべだとお認めいただけたということで、このような場ではありますが、とても名誉なことだと存じます。しかしこの手紙を置いたのは私ではありません。
それを私が鵜呑みにできると思いますか？お前が首謀者に決まっています。あるいは熊沢も南條先生もその共犯かもしれない。マリアちゃんもです。
Not content to doubt just the adults, Aunt Nasuhi pointed the gun relentlessly at Maria too. But Maria acted as though nothing had happened. Or maybe she thought she would be fine even if she was shot.
マリアちゃん、今この場ではもう幼いから疑いの枠から外すという段階にない。だから誰もが昨夜からずっと持ってきた疑問をもう一度ぶつけさせてもらいます。昨日バラ庭園であなたに手紙を渡したベアトリーチェは誰です？マリア、ごまかすんじゃねえぜ。この際はっきりさせろ。お前に手紙を渡したのは誰なんだよ。
だから何度も言ってるよ。ベアトリーチェだよ。1000年を生きる黄金の魔女なんだよ。姿を知りたければ後ろを振り返ればいい。ほら、そこにいるよ、ベアトリーチェが。
バカにしてんのかってめえ。
よせジェシカ、マリアもよせ。状況が分かってんのか。そんなこと言って何になるってんだ。無意味な挑発はよしやがるってんだ。
マリアには分かんないよ。バトラたちは誰が犯人ならいいの？自分たちの中に犯人がいると信じたくない時だけベアトリーチェを信じて、親しい人を殺された恨みを晴らしたい時だけ暴力をぶつけられる人間の犯人を信じたがってベアトリーチェを否定する。だから見えないんだよ。ベアトリーチェはいる。お前たちには見えない。
黙りなさい。あなたが犯人だと決めつけたくはありませんが、この状況を不愉快にさせて楽しんでいる利的行為者であることはもはや疑いの余地もありません。
ならどうするの？マリアを撃つ？別にいいよ。もうすぐ黄金鏡の扉が開かれる。そして全ての死者がよみがえる。今や死は恐れるべきことではないんだよ。
一緒になんかいられないよ。
でも夏日おばさん、どうか落ち着いて。マリアちゃんを撃つ理由は何もない。どうか冷静に。手紙は挑発するけど何も恐れることはない。犯人だって明日が怖いんだ。警察が怖いんだ。この島は今無秩序に支配されているけれど、それは台風で隔離されているからだけに過ぎない。台風が過ぎれば秩序が戻ってくる。だからおばさん、撃っちゃいけない。
なんでジョージ兄さんはそんなにも冷静なんだよ。この4人の中に犯人がいる。いや、あるいは4人が全員来るかもしれない。この中にエヴァおばさんたちを殺した犯人がいるかもしれないってのに、なんでそんなに冷静なんだよ。
僕だって犯人を見つけて殺してやりたい気持ちはあるさ。でもそれは単なる蛮行だ。僕は罪の裁きを秩序に任せる。だからどんなに疑わしくても引き金を引いてはいけないんだ。
ジョージの兄貴に同じだ。夏日おばさん、ここはちょいと冷静になろうぜ。とにかく撃つのはまずいぜ。こういう時はよ、頭を後ろに反らしてクールになれって3回唱えるといいらしいぜ。
はっきりさせておきます。魔女などいない。ここは六軒島で、ここは後宮家の本家屋敷です。後宮家代表後宮夏日として宣言します。ここには魔女などいない。ベアトリーチェなど認めない。何を企もうとも娘たちには指一本触れさせない。それが母としての、当家代表としての務めです。
I love Nasuhi. I'm gonna admit this now. I'm really liking Nasuhi as a character because she's fucking awesome. Those words were the final words of farewell that settled everything. To protect her daughter, Aunt Nasuhi would regard any suspicious person as an enemy. The only reason George and Nikki and I were standing on this side was because, by coincidence, we had a clear alibi regarding the letter. If I hadn't approached the portrait, I too may have been at the other end of that gun barrel, treated like a criminal. But even though part of me thought that, part of me was thinking that chasing all of the suspicious people from this room would finally guarantee our safety. Genji-san, Kumosawa-san, and Dr. Nanjo, all of them were on grandfather's side. You could even say that Maria was on grandfather's side, since she had a blind belief in Beatrice. That's right. They're all suspicious. But is this really alright? Is it really alright for us to fight back against the lawlessness of the witch by throwing out all the suspicious ones without due process? No, the song's gonna fade out. No! I like the song though. God, this song's called Core, right? I'm gonna have to look this one up. Fuck, that song's awesome. And the Suhi didn't tell them to leave with their own words. But with wordless pressure, she was inducing them to say that themselves. So, if Dr. Nanjo hadn't said those words, this cold silence would surely have continued forever.
落ち着きなさい、ナスヒさん。だが気持ちはよくわかる。わしだって今朝からの異常な事件続きで頭がどうかなってしまいそうだ。だからわしらを疑いたい気持ちもよくわかる。
もし本当に南條先生が無関係なら、私は無礼極まりないことをしているのだと思います。ですが今だけは分かってください。
分かった。 わしらは部屋を出ましょう。どうですかな、源氏さん。客間に戻ってチェスの続きといきませんかな。
それをお望みでしたらぜひ。
私は嫌ですよ。だってこの中に狼がいると分かってて部屋から追い出されてしまうんですよ。嫌ですよ、奥様。どうかお許しください。
What Kumasawa-san was trying to say made total sense. If she was innocent, then she was being ejected into dangerous territory along with the culprit. In the current situation, pressing her to leave this room along with the suspects was almost exactly the same as letting her get killed. However, Kumasawa-san really was suspicious just for being the first one to discover that Kanekun had been murdered. At that time, everyone except Kumasawa-san had an alibi. As long as the use of some trick or the existence of some 19th person could not be established, Kumasawa-san was one of the most likely suspects by far. I didn't want to believe it. However, Aunt Nasuhi and the rest of us were in such a difficult situation that we couldn't help doubting any of them, Kumasawa-san included. So, we didn't say anything to stop Aunt Nasuhi from trying to oppressively chase them from the room. We had stopped her from shooing, but when it came to exiling them from the room, we were passively agreeing. Maria spoke to the still fretful Kumasawa-san.
大丈夫だよ。ベアトリーチェは敬う人には優しいから。熊沢さんはベアトリーチェがいるって信じてるもん。だからきっと大丈夫だよ。マリアは客間でテレビを見るよ。一緒に見ようよ。ここテレビがなくてつまんないもん。
I thought you'd be into the Grimoire. It looked like Kumasawa found Maria's roguish laugh very frightening. However, the three other people had agreed to leave the room. Kumasawa couldn't fight the flow, and had to agree, crying as she left the room.
それでは夏日さん、今夜はこれで。また明日お会いしましょう。
You're dead! You are so dead, Nanjo!
今夜だけは分かってください。警察が来たら全員に今夜のこの無礼を必ず謝罪しますから。チェスもよろしいでしょうか。できたら安全なところに。源氏、頼みます。
かしこまりました。
仕方ありませんね。子連れの熊が一番恐ろしいと言いますから。
源氏も熊沢も本当に申し訳ありません。また明日お会いしましょう。マリアちゃんも冷たいおばさんをどうか許して。
マリアは許す。
奥様、この部屋の鍵です。2本すべてをお預けします。
Genji-san pulled the 2 golden keys from his pocket and handed them to Aunt Nasuhi.
それから私が持っているお屋敷内の鍵束もお預けいたします。
He took out a bundle of about 10 keys of various shapes and handed over to to the servants. Those keys were probably the proof of their position. Being placed in charge of those keys meant that they were trusted, relied upon. Being forced to return them meant they had lost that trust. Thinking about it this way, there could have been no greater humiliation for Genji-san, who had served here for all these years. However, his usual indifferent expression remained on his face.
源氏、私はお前をお父様がお亡くなりになったら長年の苦労をねぎらって退職を許すつもりでいました。なのにこのような仕打ちを私は心より恥じます。
私は親方様よりすでにご恩を受けております。今日までの日々はそれに対するご恩返しの日々であっただけです。どうかお気に病まれませんよ。
それでは参りますかな、皆さん。おやすみなさい。
おやすみ。バトラもおやすみ。
Why single battler out?
あ、マリア、ちょっと待て。
Guilt made me call Maria back. I groped around in my pocket. Oh my god, Eve. Now that... Oh my god. I think... Rikishi, you fucker. Did you gaslight me? I groped around in my pocket and took out that scorpion key holder.
これ魔除けなんだろ。
Voiceless.
身につけとけ。
バトラ、確か落としてなくしたって。
あん時はなんか尺になってなくしたとかほら吹いただけだ。お前の大切なお守りをなくすわけねえだろ。
Maria silently took the charm. I was unable to say anything after that.
それでは皆様、おやすみなさいませ。
The final goodnight from most. Okay, I'm betting this now. Everyone but Maria is gonna get fucking killed outside of the room. Maybe. Unable to respond, we watched them leave. Our expressions completely tired out. And until the door closed and we heard the auto lock, we were unable to even draw our next breath. Then, when I was finally allowed to take a breath, I noticed that Beatrice's letter, which I had been gripping the whole time, and which was soaked with my sweat, actually had 2 sheets. The paper had been tightly stuck together, so I had mistakenly thought that there was only one. There was nothing written on that second sheet. The thing drawn there was a magic circle, written with a red ink like blood. Just like how every magic circle up until then had been different, this magic circle was one that I had never laid eyes on. Inside the circle, a large triangle and a small triangle were fit together in a simple design. But just as before, there was writing in Hebrew, and it seemed clear that it held some kind of meaning. I wanted to know what that could be, but we had just chased Maria, the only person who could understand the meaning of magic circles, out of the room. I thought of the magic circles as a second set of messages from Beatrice. What does this one mean? Damn it! We've chased out all of the suspicious people. Now all we have to do is stay barricaded here until morning. And then everything will be over? Once the typhoon has passed, Umineko no Nakukora ni, will everything be resolved? When the seagulls cry. But the letter that had unexpectedly appeared in the study had rejected that naivety. It had made it very clear that, if time ran out, it would mean victory for the witch. When time runs out, is the witch planning to take on the offensive? Is she, finally, planning to display some fearful magical power? Maybe something that could have been used to kill 6 adults at once? Wait, when is time supposed to run out? I don't know anything.
これでもう安全です。
That's the biggest I can hear.
もう絶対に。
Even as she said that, Aunt Nasuhi couldn't stop gripping that rifle. There was no release in the tension of her expression. Of course, none of us felt like breathing a sigh of relief yet. At least, none until we could hear the cries of the seagulls once more. Glass break. Glass break? There we go! Neko no Nakukora ni.
Okay.